You're watching Bible Study 24H, the channel, where stories of faith history and the turning points of the church come alive with heart and truth. Today we take you inside a moment no one expected, behind the grand walls of the Vatican. Pope Francis's final wish left Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle in tears. This isn't just a story of power or succession, it's a legacy, a mission, and possibly a historic shift for the Catholic Church. Stay with us as we uncover what moved Tagle so deeply and why the whole world is watching what comes next. It was a moment no one saw coming. Behind the grand walls of the Vatican, in a private room where only the most senior cardinals were allowed, something was said that would leave one man visibly shaken, Luis Antonio Tagle. As whispers turned into official words, Tagle couldn't hold back his tears. Why? Because what the cardinals announced wasn't just news. It was Pope Francis's last wish. A wish that wasn't meant to stay within those walls. It was a message loud and clear, meant for the world. But why now? Why did this deeply personal request come at this exact moment? Pope Francis had been battling health issues, and at 88, many expected retirement talks. Yet no one expected this emotional bombshell. Witnesses said Tagle's face told a story of honor, fear, and overwhelming responsibility. Many have long believed that Tagle was more than just a trusted cardinal. He was the man Pope Francis saw as the future. And now, with this final wish, revealed, the weight of that future came crashing down. As one insider reportedly whispered, it wasn't just a wish, it was a legacy passed on. And so, as Tagle wiped away his tears, the world outside began to ask, what exactly did Pope Francis request? What could move a man like Tagle, known for his calm and strength, to such raw emotion? The answer lies not just in the words spoken that day, but in the life of the man who spoke them, Pope Francis himself. And that's where our story leads next. Who really is the man behind this historic wish, the man behind the mission? Before he became the leader of 1.3 billion Catholics, he was just Jorge Mario Bergoglio, a boy from Buenos Aires with humble beginnings and a heart for the people. When he became Pope Francis in 2013, he didn't just take a new name. He introduced a new way of leading, the first Jesuit pope, the first from the Americas, and perhaps the first in a long time to truly live like the people he served. From day one, Pope Francis rejected luxury, no golden thrones, no lavish palaces. He chose simplicity, walking among the poor, speaking in words everyone could understand. His mission was clear. I want a church that is poor and for the poor. But now, at 88 with his health in question, many wondered, did he feel his mission was unfinished? Was this last wish his way of ensuring that his vision would live on even after he stepped away? Because Pope Francis wasn't just thinking about today, he was thinking about tomorrow, and about who would carry forward his dream of a compassionate, inclusive church. And that brings us back to the importance of this wish, a wish that was more than just a farewell. But what does a pope's last wish really mean? Let's find out. More than just words. In most cases, when a pope leaves a message behind, it's in the form of official teachings, doctrines, or letters. But Pope Francis was never like most popes. His final wish wasn't filled with rules or complex theology. It was something far deeper. A call for unity, compassion, and hope. A human message, not just a religious one. Some say he hinted at succession without naming names. Others believe he simply asked the church to stay true to his vision of kindness over judgment. As one Vatican source put it, Francis didn't just want to be remembered for what he changed, but for who would continue changing things. This wasn't about power, it was about purpose. And that's why his last wish could redefine the church for generations. Because it wasn't locked in tradition, it was open to transformation. But if there was anyone who could truly understand the heart behind this message, it was the man who stood crying as it was announced, Luis Antonio Tolli. So, who is this man, Pope Francis, trusted so deeply? Let's take a closer look. The protege who carried the vision. Luis Antonio Tolli's story is one of humility, service, and quiet strength. Born in Manila, far from the power centers of Rome, no one could have predicted that this soft-spoken cardinal would one day be whispered as the future of the Catholic Church. But Pope Francis saw something special in him. Nicknamed the Asian Francis Togli, mirrored everything the Pope stood for: humility, compassion, and a deep connection to ordinary people. Whether comforting refugees or speaking out for the poor, Togli lived the mission Francis preached. It wasn't just coincidence that Pope Francis placed him in key roles, trusted him with delicate tasks, and kept him close in times of major decisions. Many believe that when Pope Francis made his final wish, it was Togli he had in mind as the one to guide the Church into a new era. As one cardinal once said, Togli doesn't just follow Francis's vision, he embodies it. But stepping into that role wouldn't be easy, because the Church is standing at a critical point, caught between the weight of tradition and the winds of change. And that's exactly where we head next. Tradition meets transformation. Right now, the Catholic Church stands at a critical crossroads, a moment of decision that could define its future for decades, even centuries. On one side of this divide lies tradition, centuries of rules, rituals, and authority that have shaped the Church into what it is today. On the other side is a rapidly changing world calling not for abandonment of faith, but for a faith that evolves, that listens, includes, and adapts. Pope Francis's last wish didn't just acknowledge this divide, it challenged it directly. He knew the Church could no longer ignore the voices of those left on the margins. His message wasn't only about who would come next, it was about what kind of church would exist for the next generation. This is where Luis Antonio Tolli enters the story in a profound way. Tolli is uniquely positioned between these two worlds. He is a man who has earned the respect of traditionalists for his deep theological grounding and loyalty to church doctrine. Yet he's also captured the hearts of progressives for his empathy, his compassion, and his clear desire to make the church a home for everyone, not just the few. He doesn't scream change, he embodies it quietly. And sometimes quiet change is the most powerful of all. But let's be honest, this is not an easy road. Inside the Vatican, not everyone wants transformation. There are strong and deeply rooted forces that fear what a more inclusive modern church might mean. They worry that evolving too far too fast will weaken the foundation of what they've protected for centuries. As one Vatican insider recently put it, this isn't just about a new pope, it's about a new church, and that terrifies some people. And yet, outside the Vatican walls, the voices calling for reform are louder than ever. Young Catholics especially are seeking a church that doesn't just recite doctrine, but reflects their lives, their struggles, their questions, and their hopes. To many, Luis Tagle is the one figure who might actually be able to bridge that gap. Because Tagle understands something vital. Faith doesn't have to be loud to be alive. It just has to be real. This moment in history is more than a leadership transition. It's a spiritual test. Will the church continue to cling to the past out of fear? Or will it embrace the future with faith? Could this be the most important turning point since the church's founding? Many believe it could. But as speculation swirls about Tagle's future role, some are asking an even more intriguing question. Has the decision already been made behind closed doors? The signs are there, the whispers are growing. And Tagle's emotional response to Pope Francis' last wish? Well, it might mean more than anyone expected. So what really happens when the time comes to choose the next pope? let's go behind the curtain into the ancient secretive world of papal conclave and uncover whether Tegel's future has already been written in silence. Is it already decided? For centuries, the election of a new pope has been one of the most secretive and sacred processes in the world. Hidden behind the ancient walls of the Vatican, the papal conclave unfolds like a ritual untouched by time. No cameras, no outside influence, just the cardinals, their conscience. And if tradition holds the guidance of the Holy Spirit, once inside the Sistine Chapel, the doors are locked. The world outside can only watch and wait for a single sign: the color of the smoke. Black smoke means no agreement. White smoke means a new pope has been chosen. Simple, right? But what if this time things aren't so simple? What if the decision was made long before the ballots were ever cast? In recent weeks, whispers have grown louder across Vatican circles. Rumors suggesting that Pope Francis, aware of his declining health and the divisions within the Church, may have subtly paved the way for his preferred successor. No, a pope cannot officially name who comes next, but influence, that's a different story. Pope Francis has always been strategic, choosing cardinals who align with his vision for a compassionate, inclusive church. Many of those same cardinals will be the ones voting in the next conclave. Coincidence or careful planning? And then came the emotional moment that set tongues wagging when Luis Antonio Tagle was seen wiping away tears after the cardinal's private announcement of Pope Francis's last wish. To many observers, this wasn't just grief or respect. This was something deeper. As one insider quietly remarked, the torch doesn't need to be passed publicly to be received. Could it be that Pope Francis, in his final personal request, made it clear who he, so to hope, would lead after him? A spiritual handover spoken not as a command, but as a heartfelt desire. A desire the cardinals could hardly ignore when the time comes to vote. The world outside will still see the smoke. The traditions will still be followed. But behind the ceremony, many believe the outcome has already been shaped, not by chance, but by years of careful mentorship and trust. And all eyes are now on Tagle. Every step he takes, every word he doesn't say, fuels speculation. Is he preparing for something he never publicly asked for, but privately accepted? Because emotions like his, those raw, visible tears, don't come from nowhere. They come from knowing that life is about to change forever. So has the next pope already been chosen, not by official decree, but by the unspoken will of a departing leader? These are the questions swirling through Rome's ancient streets. The kind of questions no one inside the Vatican will answer, but everyone is thinking. And as Tagle stays silent, the world can only wonder, why did this moment hit him so hard? What truth lies behind those tears? Let's take a closer look at the man himself and uncover what emotions reveal when words fall short. Why Tagle's tears spoke louder than words. Luis Antonio Tagle is known for his calm demeanor, his steady voice, and his ability to inspire without ever raising his tone. So, when a man like that breaks down in front of his peers, it's not just sadness, it's something much deeper. For Tagle, this wasn't just about honoring Pope Francis's last wish. It was about the overwhelming pressure of what that wish implied. Imagine being seen as the chosen one, not by ambition but by trust. Knowing that stepping forward could mean leading over 1 billion people facing critics from every corner and carrying the expectations of both tradition and progress. As one cardinal reportedly said after witnessing the moment, those were not just tears of grief, they were tears of knowing. Does Tagle even want the role? That remains the unanswered question. Because fulfilling a dying wish is one thing, but accepting the weight of history is another. After the announcement, sources say Tagle spent hours in reflection away from public view, a man caught between personal humility and global responsibility. But while Tagle stays silent, the church continues to shift, And Pope Francis' wish wasn't just about one man. It was about changing the very direction of the church itself. So, what does this shift really look like? Let's see how this moment could redefine the Catholic Church across the world. How the last wish reflects a new church. For over 2,000 years, the heartbeat of the Catholic Church echoed through the grand cathedrals of Europe. From Rome to Paris, from Vatican City to the ancient halls of tradition, leadership was always shaped by Western voices. But Pope Francis, true to his nature, dared to imagine something different. His last wish wasn't just about who would wear the papal white next. It was about shifting the very center of gravity of the church. A church that no longer speaks from Europe to the world, but speaks with the world, especially to those who have been unheard for too long. Pope Francis knew where the future of faith was growing, not in the declining congregations of Europe, but in the vibrant, struggling, and hopeful communities of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. These regions are now home to the fastest-growing Catholic populations, and yet for centuries, their voices were distant echoes in the corridors of power. His final message was clear. It's time for the church to reflect its people, to embrace diversity not as a token gesture, but as its foundation. And standing at the center of this vision is one man, Luis Antonio Tagle, a son of the Philippines, a country where Catholicism is not just a religion, but a way of life, woven into the daily struggles and triumphs of ordinary people. Tagle isn't just a cardinal. He's a symbol of what the church could become, a leader who understands poverty because he's seen it, who speaks of compassion because he's lived it. Fluent not only in languages but in the universal language of empathy. If Tagle were to ascend to the papacy, it would be more than just a new face in the Vatican. It would be a historic turning point, the end of European dominance in church leadership, and the beginning of a truly global church. One where a child in Manila or a family in Nairobi feels just as connected to Rome as anyone in Paris or Madrid. As Pope Francis once said, the future of the church is not in the past, but in the margins. And that's exactly where Tagle comes from. Not from marble palaces, but from streets where faith is about survival, hope, and community. But let's not pretend this shift would be welcomed by all. Change, especially in institutions as ancient as the Catholic Church, often sparks fear. There are those who see this global transformation as a threat to tradition. They fear that opening the doors wider could mean losing control over centuries-old customs and authority. So while millions may celebrate the idea of a church led by someone like Tagle, powerful voices behind closed doors may already be preparing to resist. This is more than a change in leadership. It's a battle over identity. Will the church step boldly into a future where every voice matters? Or will it retreat into the comfort of old ways? The stage is set, but the next act will depend on whether Tagle is ready to carry this global vision forward. And that leads us to a critical question. Can he withstand the storm that's coming? Let's dive into the enormous challenges that await him if he chooses to fulfill Pope Francis's daring last wish. Can Tagle fulfill the impossible? If Luis Antonio Tagle truly becomes the man to carry out Pope Francis's vision, he won't just be stepping into history, he'll be stepping into a storm unlike any other. Because this isn't the church of centuries past. Today, the Catholic Church faces a world questioning everything: its authority, its relevance, even its morals. And at the center of it all stands a man known for his gentle smile and compassionate heart. But is that enough? First, there are the deep scars the church has yet to heal. The abuse scandals, stories that have shaken the faith of millions. No leader can ignore them, and Tagle would be expected to confront them head-on with transparency and justice. But how do you rebuild trust when so much has been broken? Then there's the growing cry for modernization all over the world. Catholics, especially younger generations, are asking tough questions. Should the church reconsider its stance on LGBTQ rights? Should women have a greater role in leadership? How can ancient traditions survive in a world that's changing by the minute? Balancing these demands while staying true to centuries of doctrine is no simple task. It's walking a tightrope where every step could spark backlash from either side, and Tagle, known for his diplomacy and kindness, would need to transform from a beloved figure into something far more difficult, a reformer under fire. As one Vatican commentator bluntly put it, being Pope today isn't just about faith, it's about navigating a storm. But perhaps the greatest challenge doesn't come from outside voices. It comes from within the internal politics of the Vatican. Powerful factions, deeply rooted in tradition, are ready to push back against any attempt at major reform. These are not just disagreements, they are battles for the soul of the Church. Even if Pope Francis's last wish pointed directly to Tagle, there's no guarantee the path ahead would be smooth. History has shown that popes who try to change too much too fast often face isolation, criticism, and even betrayal from within their own ranks. And let's not forget, Tagle never asked for this. His tears during the cardinal's announcement weren't just about honor, they were about the crushing weight of expectation. To fulfill Francis's vision, Tagle would have to lead with courage, wisdom, and an unshakable commitment to both compassion and truth. So now, the world waits. If Tagle steps forward, will he be embraced as a beacon of hope, or will he face walls of resistance at every turn? One thing is certain, this isn't just about becoming Pope, it's about transforming an institution that billions look to for guidance. The question is, can one man fulfill what many are already calling the impossible mission? Tagle stands at a crossroads between fear and faith, tradition and transformation. But ultimately, it all comes down to one final defining question. Will Pope Francis's last wish ever truly come to life? Let's bring it all together in our final chapter. Will Pope Francis's last wish come true? Now, as the dust settles around the cardinal's announcement, the world is left wondering, will Pope Francis's emotional final wish be honored, or will it fade away as just another moment lost to Vatican secrecy? Luis Antonio Tagle has yet to speak publicly about that tearful day. But sometimes silence says more than words ever could. The cardinals hold the power to decide the next chapter. But the spirit of Francis's message, his call for compassion, inclusion, and a church that truly serves humanity, now lingers over every decision they make. As millions watch from around the globe, one thing is clear. This isn't just about choosing a new pope. It's about choosing the future direction of one of the world's oldest institutions. Will Tagle rise to fulfill the wish of the man who trusted him most? Or will centuries of tradition stand firm against the winds of change? As Pope Francis once said, the measure of greatness is not in power, but in service. And with that, we're left on the edge of history, because whatever happens next, one truth remains. Pope Francis's last wish is not just a farewell, it's a call to action. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. The story of Pope Francis's last wish is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. Will Luis Antonio Tagle rise to carry forward his mentor's vision? Will the Church step into a bold new era of compassion and renewal? Keep following Bible Study 24H so you don't miss the latest updates on this unfolding moment in church history. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help spread the message of love and hope to more people. What do you think the future holds for the Church? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to hear from you.